In 1883, a sick man wrote a prophecy about you. He didn't know your name. He didn't know what century you'd be born in. But he described, with frightening precision, the kind of human being humanity was about to mass produce. He called him the last man. And the description is this: a creature who no longer wants anything great, who works, but only enough to stay distracted, who has a little pleasure for the day and a little pleasure for the night, who avoids anything that might hurt, who no longer knows how to despise or to admire, because both take effort, who has discovered something he calls happiness and blinks. That blink, in his description, is the cruelest detail. It's the gesture of someone satisfied and empty at the same time, of someone who knows, somewhere, that he lost something and chose not to look. Nietzsche wrote that when he announced this to the crowd would shout, "Give us this last man! Make us into this last man!" He was right. We built an entire world to produce exactly that creature, and we called it progress. Tonight, 9 dark lessons about mediocrity, 9 hammer blows, and I have to warn you before we start, the 6th one is about you. Not about your generation, not about the people around you, about you, specifically, and about this exact moment in which you are watching this. You'll want to close it before you get there. Don't. There's no comfort here. There's a forge. But first, who's speaking? Because it changes the weight of every word. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote the most violent hymns to human greatness while being the frailest man you can imagine. He had migraines that left him vomiting for 3 days straight, in the dark, unable to lift his head from the pillow. His eyesight was so bad he wrote with his face nearly touching the paper, and after half an hour the letters danced. He spent years drifting between cheap rooms in Italy and Switzerland, hunting for a climate that hurt less. And here's what matters. He had every reason in the world to be a last man. A sick, poor, ignored man has the perfect excuse to shrink, to settle, to give up on the large ambitions, to say that life didn't allow it. He did the opposite. In that condition, he wrote the boldest book of the century, and nobody read it for 30 years. He kept writing. When this man talks about mediocrity, it isn't a comfortable winner handing out lessons. It's someone who had the door to the small life standing open every single day and refused to walk through it. 9 lessons. Let's go. First lesson. The last man has already arrived, and he's comfortable. The prophecy isn't about the future. It was fulfilled. Look around honestly. What is the supreme value of our age? It isn't greatness. It isn't courage. It isn't excellence. It's comfort. An entire world was built to eliminate discomfort. Don't wait. Don't walk. Don't strain. Don't be bored for even 30 seconds. Don't be cold. Don't be hungry. Don't sit in silence. And the result wasn't a stronger humanity. It was a humanity that lost the capacity to endure anything at all. Nietzsche wasn't against comfort as such. He was no ascetic. He was against making comfort the final goal, because a life organized entirely around not suffering is a life organized around doing nothing worth doing. Look at your own vocabulary. How many decisions have you made in the last 2 years using the words safe, stable, not worth the risk, better not to touch it? Every one of them was probably sensible, and the sum of them is a life you didn't choose. The last man isn't a monster. He's reasonable. That's exactly why he's so hard to escape. And there's a simple test for whether he's already moved in. Ask yourself, when was the last time you wanted something so badly it took your sleep? Not a worry, a desire. Something you wanted to the point of it hurting. If the answer is more than 3 years back, it isn't that life got hard. It's that your desires shrank to fit what's comfortable. And that shrinking is never announced. It happens on its own, a little each year, with nobody telling you. Second lesson. Mediocrity isn't a lack of talent, it's an absence of risk. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes about this. You think mediocre people are the ones who tried and didn't make it. That mediocrity is a matter of capacity, of gift, of genetic luck. It isn't. Look again. The person who tried and failed publicly is not mediocre. They're someone who bet, who exposed themselves, who found their own limit by touching it. They have a story. The mediocre man is something else. He's the one who never entered, who spent 30 years with an idea in his head and never tested it, who has a talent and never showed it to anyone, who knows exactly what he'd do if he had the nerve and uses the word someday as a painkiller. And here's the mechanism, and it's diabolical. Not trying preserves the fantasy. As long as you don't try, you remain in your own head someone who could. Untested talent is infinite. The unwritten book is a masterpiece. The business never opened would have worked. Trying destroys that. Trying gives you a real number, and the real number is always smaller than the fantasy. So the person chooses the fantasy and calls it prudence. And notice how it protects itself. The man who never tried always has a reason ready, and the reason is always external. The economy, the timing, the family, the country, the luck he wasn't given. Every one of those may be partly true, and all of them together are still an argument for staying exactly where he is. Nietzsche saw the essential cowardice there, not the fear of failure, but the fear of finding out what you're made of. And there's a form of postponement more efficient than all the others, because it disguises itself as responsibility. Infinite preparation. One more course, one more book, when the kids are older, when the market improves, when I'm ready. Nobody is ever ready. Being ready isn't a state that arrives. It's something built after you start, halfway through, getting it wrong in front of people. Eternal preparation is the only way to never fail and never live at the same time. Third lesson. You traded one great desire for many small pleasures. This is the most practical lesson, and the easiest to verify tonight. The last man has, in Nietzsche's description, a little pleasure for the day and a little pleasure for the night. He wrote that before television, before the phone, before everything you use, and it's a literal description of your Sunday. Notice what happened to the structure of human desire. Once, a man could spend an entire life chasing one thing, a work, a crossing, a person, a building. The desire was large, distant, and it organized everything else. Today, desire is sliced into hundreds of daily microdoses, each satisfied in seconds. A notification, an episode, an order delivered in 20 minutes, a short video, another. And the problem isn't that this is sinful. The problem is arithmetic. The capacity to desire is finite, and it gets spent. A man who satisfies 200 small desires a day has no desire energy left over for a large one. He is permanently sated and permanently empty, which is exactly the state of the last man.
Do the math on your week. How many hours went to small, immediate pleasures? And how many went to one difficult, distant thing that will still take years? If the second column is empty, you don't have a discipline problem. You have a size of desire problem. Fourth lesson. The herd rewards you for being small. And here's why it's so hard to get out of this alone. Every human group, according to Nietzsche, has a silent interest in the mediocrity of its members. Not out of malice, out of stability. A group runs better when nobody stands out too much, questions too much, wants too much. So the group develops a system of rewards and punishments you know well. It rewards you when you shrink. The lines are affectionate. Don't be so hard on yourself. You've done enough. Enjoy life. You don't need all that. Almost always said with real warmth. And it punishes you when you grow. There the lines change temperature. You've changed. Look who thinks he's better than us. God, so intense. Notice that the punishment doesn't come for doing something wrong. It comes for doing something different. And here's the detail that makes it work so well. Those people aren't conspiring against you. They like you. In their heads, they're protecting you from disappointment. They genuinely believe they're helping. That's why affection is the most efficient brake ever invented. Nobody can fight the people who love them while shrinking them.
And don't mistake that for an invitation to cut everyone out of your life, that reading is lazy, and it produces bitter, lonely people. What Nietzsche is asking for is subtler. Know where each piece of advice comes from. Advice from someone who has done the thing is worth gold. Advice from someone who never tried is just their fear, wearing concern for you as a costume. Fifth lesson. Distraction isn't laziness, it's anesthesia. This changes how you see your own wasted time. There's a comfortable explanation for the hours you spend scrolling. Lack of discipline, dopamine addiction, a well-built algorithm. All true and all superficial. The harder explanation is, you're not running from the work, you're running from the silence. Because in silence, the question appears, the one you know that always arrives in the same shape, almost always late at night, and sounds roughly like, is this it? Is this what I'm going to do with the years I have? That question is unbearable for someone who has no answer, and it only shows up in the void. So the void gets filled preemptively, not because the content is interesting, notice that often it isn't, but because as long as there's sound and image, the question can't surface. And that's why most people can't sit 15 minutes with nothing. It isn't impatience, it's fear. The last man isn't idle. He's the busiest creature in history, just busy with nothing. And notice the phrase we use for it, killing time. It's the most honest expression in the language. We don't fill it, don't use it, don't live it. We kill it, because being awake inside it has become unbearable. A man who can bear his own silence is dangerous, because sooner or later he's going to answer the question. And there's a simple way to test that today, and it's harder than it sounds. Sit for 15 minutes with no screen, no music, no book, without getting up to do something useful. Just sitting. Pay attention to what shows up around the 6th or 7th minute. It won't be boredom. It'll be a physical restlessness, an almost bodily urge to stand up, a sudden urgency to check something that doesn't need checking. What's rising there is what you've been drowning. And it's not unusual that, on the other side of those 15 minutes, the exact name of the thing you're postponing appears. Sixth lesson.
You're the last man watching a video about the overman. Now the mirror. And I'm going to ask you not to look away. You clicked on this video, and for the last several minutes, you've been agreeing with me. You recognized the herd. You recognized the distracted people. You thought of someone specific in your family while I was on the 4th lesson. That is exactly what the last man does. Because there's a form of mediocrity more sophisticated and harder to detect than all the others. The mediocrity that feels superior. It's the person who reads about greatness instead of building any. Who knows the theory of discipline better than any athlete and doesn't train? Who can explain what the will to power is and has no project at all? Who watches 3 hours of transformation content a week and hasn't changed anything in 2 years? That consumption produces a chemical sensation almost identical to effort. You finish the video feeling moved, lucid, ahead of other people. And that sensation is the problem, because it replaces action instead of triggering it. You didn't move. You just felt different while standing still. And here's the test, and it's merciless. In the last 90 days, how much content about self-improvement did you consume? And how many concrete things changed in your actual routine? If the first column is far larger than the second, you're not the exception watching a video about the herd. You're the herd watching a video about the exception. Myself included when I wrote this. That's why this lesson exists. 7th lesson. You need chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. Now the turn. Because the first 6 were diagnosis, and the last 3 are what to do. This is one of Nietzsche's best-known lines, and it's almost always read as pretty poetry. It isn't poetry. It's a technical instruction. He's saying that excessive order is sterile, that a perfectly tidy life with no internal tension, no contradiction, no conflicting desire, produces nothing. That you need raw internal force, desire, rage, ambition, restlessness, the thing that won't let you sleep, for anything new to be born. And here's the practical inversion. Contemporary culture treats all internal discomfort as a symptom. Restless? That should be treated. Dissatisfied with your life? That should be accepted. Want more? Work on your gratitude. Nietzsche would look at that and say, you're anesthetizing the engine. Not all restlessness is illness. Part of it is information. It's the part of you that knows your current life is beneath what you're capable of and refuses to sign off on it. If you have a restlessness that hasn't gone away in years, and it's specific, always about the same thing, that isn't generic anxiety. That's a direction pointing. The last man eliminated his internal chaos, and so he gives birth to nothing. Which means the goal was never to feel calm. The goal is to have something worth being restless about. 8th lesson. Nothing great was ever born inside the herd. Nietzsche wrote, "Flee, my brother, into your solitude." It wasn't misanthropy. He was describing a technical necessity. Every new idea is born fragile. It's born badly phrased, incomplete, easy to ridicule. If it's exposed to the group too early, it dies, not because it's bad, but because it had no defenses yet. and the group kills without meaning to. With a, "And you think you can pull that off?" With an awkward silence at the table. With a joke. That's why solitude isn't a punishment. It's an incubator. In practice, that means a discipline almost nobody has. Stop announcing. Notice how many times you told people your plan before doing it. And notice what happened to your energy after telling them. It dropped. Because telling already delivered part of the reward. You already got the widened eyes, the "that's amazing," the anticipated admiration. And the brain files that as though something had already happened. What is announced weakens. What is kept accumulates. This is also why so many people have a plan they've described beautifully for years and never built. They already collected the applause. There was nothing left to go and get. Pick 1 or 2 people who can handle hearing the truth, and for everyone else, work in silence until the thing can stand on its own. 9th lesson. Build your city on Vesuvius. Here's the way out, and it's the most dangerous and most honest line Nietzsche wrote about this. He said, "The secret for harvesting the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment from existence is to live dangerously. Build your cities on the slopes of Vesuvius." He wasn't telling anyone to do something stupid. This isn't about physical risk. It isn't about financial recklessness. It isn't about destroying what you've built. It's about this. A life organized entirely around safety has already lost. It can last 80 years and never have happened. And in practice, living dangerously is almost never spectacular. It's small and constant. It's telling the truth when lying would be easier and more polite. It's asking out loud for what you want, at the real risk of hearing no. It's showing the work you've been doing in secret for 2 years. It's leaving a comfortable situation that's killing you slowly. It's starting something you're bad at, in front of people who are already good. Notice that all of those have one thing in common: the concrete possibility of humiliation. And that's exactly why they work. Because what separates the last man from any other kind of man isn't talent, money, or intelligence. It's the willingness to be seen trying. And there's one more thing that changes the whole calculation. The humiliation of trying lasts weeks. The humiliation of never having tried lasts decades. And it always arrives at the same hour of the night, when there's no longer time to correct it. And there's a real consolation hidden in that, which almost nobody notices. You imagine the world is watching you and will judge every mistake of yours for years. It isn't. People are busy with their own small lives, their own postponements, their own last man. Your failure will occupy their heads for an afternoon at most. They'll forget by next week. You're the only person who will remember. And you'll remember it either way, having tried or not having tried. Except one of those memories fades and the other doesn't. Now, this week's task. One task, and it's the most uncomfortable one I've asked for on this channel. Think of the thing you've wanted to do for more than a year and haven't. Don't invent a new one. You already know which it is. It appeared in your head during the 3rd lesson, and you've pushed it away twice since then. Now answer one question, and answer it honestly. What exactly is the worst that would happen if you tried, and it went wrong in front of everyone? Write the answer down. Don't think, write. Because as long as the fear stays shapeless in your head, It's infinite. On paper, it's almost always a small, specific sentence along the lines of, "People would think I thought I was special." Then do the second part, the part that transforms. Take the smallest possible action in that direction this week. Not a plan, not a course, not research. An action with a witness, something another person sees. Because mediocrity doesn't die of reflection, it dies of exposure. And if you did it, if you have the sentence written and the action set, write 4 words in the comments. I left the herd. The people who left know what stings there. And the people who won't do anything will be down in the comments explaining why this video is about other people. And answer the other one, too. Which of the 9 burned deepest? Not the prettiest, the one you already started arguing with in your head while I was talking. Write just the number, because the one that stings is always the door. One last thing, and it's serious. This video is about ambition and will, not about swallowing real pain. There's a difference between the mediocrity described here, which is a reversible choice, and genuine exhaustion, depression, a burnout that has already taken your capacity to want anything at all. That isn't fixed by willpower, and calling it weakness would be both cruel and false. If that's you, talk to a professional or someone you trust. Nietzsche wrote about becoming steel. He never wrote that you should forge metal that's still bleeding. If this video lit something in you, leave a like. That's how it finds another person who is, right now, postponing the same thing they've been postponing for 2 years. And subscribe, because we don't look for comfort here. We look for fire. And every week I come back with more. Become who you are, before the demon asks.